can I say I'm one of those people that really struggle with introducing themselves? That if any place I've been to, besides an interview, where you're asked, who are you? I feel like it's such a broad question. My name is Fellaris Wambui, 31-year-old woman, living and working in Nairobi. I am a cat mom. I have 2 cats that I wouldn't say they are my life because there's a lot in my life, but I'm a cat mom. And I am a marketing and communication specialist working in construction and manufacturing. Have been for the last 11 years. Also a full-on lover of life, enjoy banter, and yeah, fluent in sarcasm, apparently. Yes, it's something that I know happens, and I have experienced it firsthand, and probably continue to experience it firsthand. Why it happens, I think there's plenty of reasons why this could be the case, but just starting from the very basics is that I think traditionally these roles and jobs that were thought of to be very feminine, right? So that's your teachers, your nurses, whereas, you know, these are the jobs that attract big sort of pays. That's your engineers, your doctors, your techies is what would be considered like a male kind of job. And with that already you're having so much bias within job groups and opportunities, and of course that is going to drag into it the money conversation and just how much women can earn within different spaces. You know, secondly would be, of course, the responsibilities that women have around family, and just thinking about certain flexibilities that women need around work, that then, of course, money becomes a factor. That I think until we solve or answer the question around gender roles as far as men and women within the family context and the responsibilities that both genders have, then and only then can we be able to bring that now into the workspace and say, you know what, certain flexibilities should not just be given to women, but also men need those flexibilities because they have responsibilities back at home. And then money becomes a conversation at that point. God, grab a chair. Where do we start? Whoa. First of all, I work in a very male-dominated field. And I found myself having to fight battles I was never prepared for. I'll give a few examples. One, I remember I used to work in sales, then found or identified an opportunity within the company just within my first month. I'm not a good salesperson. I actually hate selling. So I needed to get myself out of this position, and I maneuvered my way and saw, okay, there's, you know, a lack of a communication specialist, and this is what I feel I'm drawn towards. So started doing that, and within a very short amount of time, I found myself in management. And I was a 22-year-old girl in management, and 99% of the people in management were men. And so that came with its own challenges, because I remember at one point we had gone for a retreat, and my director at the time looks at me and he's like, how old are you again? Like, I'm 22. He's like, wow. And I asked him, what does that have to do with anything? And slowly by slowly, with the experiences that, with the things I started going through, things like having to work twice as hard for my ideas to even see the light of day, for me to get a seat, for me to get budgets, for me to even just express myself, I realized I was literally working against a tide, and I needed to do twice as much as the guys were doing. I remember one particular instance. One of the gentlemen in management did something that really offended me, and of course I had to speak up. And upon speaking up, I was punished for expressing myself. And how I was punished was I was not invited for the next management meeting. I only got to find out through other people within the organization that there was a meeting, and a very important meeting for that was happening. And upon inquiry, I was told, you remember what you did? This was your punishment. I knew this was happening to me because I was a woman, and a young woman at that. So even me finding my voice, and when they saw I was finding my voice, yeah, I was punished. That on top of sexual harassment, that of course had to be that thing you're told, suck it up, get used to it. That is how men behave. It's, even now just speaking about it, it almost feels like I'm reliving a certain trauma that's taken me quite some time to, of course, I wouldn't say get over, because you never really get over these things, because they morph and take different forms as you go along. But yeah, the forms of discrimination have been quite a bit. Yeah, there's a lot. I think probably my biggest accomplishment is surviving those 11 years, if I am being very honest, because I know of a lot of people who wouldn't be able to stomach even half of what I've had to go through to be where I am. So me surviving it all is my greatest accomplishment. Probably the other accomplishment I would say, just from, and I speak from a point of self, because the growth I've been able to see myself, now when I look back, say, to my 22-year-old self, to my 19-year-old self who probably had no idea what she wanted to do, and then here we are, all these years later, having somehow found our place in the world and making or having an impact while at it, for me, that's a very big accomplishment. And to know that my name is very memorable, not just because, well, it's a very unique name, but just because I think I leave a very lasting impression to a lot of people that I interact with, and it's very positive in its own way. And those are things that when I go to sleep, even if I have 0 shillings left to my name, these are things that I count to me as accomplishments. So unless I become president tomorrow and I'm asked, what's your biggest accomplishment? I would say being president, because I'm here. Then I don't know, but I think that's probably the best way I would answer that question, to be very frank and honest. Yeah. Of course. I think women, there's a lot of reasons why women make better leaders. If I could just think off the top of my head, is if there's something that women do well, is checking themselves. Checking yourselves from a point of ego, where a man would struggle with identifying something that they've done and sitting down with themselves and being like, okay, that wasn't so cool. And actually coming out and saying it and speaking it, women do it quite well and very easily, which I think is a very important characteristic of a leader. Counting that women are also very nurturing, and I find leaders need to be those people that nurture those around them. Women are very flexible, quite flexible, and I mean, there's a lot of flexibilities that are needed around leadership. Sense of community, I feel, is something that, you know, considering, think about it, women getting to the way of family, and automatically something shifts in them. Their life becomes their family. And think about if our leaders were not so self-centered and had that sense of community, family. That, amongst a multitude of reasons, is why I look at women as natural born leaders. It's just that thing that needs to be nurtured within themselves. And because women are not taught, we are not, from a very young age, it's not something that someone tells you you're a natural born leader. But think about your brothers or men in your life where they're told, you know what, you can lead. And these are things that are reinforced, which I wish we did a lot for women and for our girls. Very achievable. We are far from it. We're far from it. As a concept, it's beautiful. Are we doing anything to make sure it happens? Unfortunately not. If we are doing the absolute bare minimum. It's something that, yes, is needed for any human being, not just women alone, but we do need to find a way of having that work-life balance. Do I have it? Most certainly not. Would I wish to have it? Yes. But certain things cannot allow me to have that right kind of balance. And unfortunately, it's the work side of things that is, if you're looking at skills, then the work side of things is, heavier. Because the workplace, the way we've modeled the workplace, does not quite allow us to achieve this sort of balance. At the start of this year, I kept on saying, I would love to have this other Tim Fellaris. He has the 4-hour work week. And I keep thinking, how can we get ourselves there as a world? Because it's beautiful to read, but how practical is it sometimes? Because we also then start thinking about practicality. And if we want our economies to grow and function as they should, how practical is it having like a 4-hour work week? So that amongst this, it's a very long conversation again. And I think COVID also brought that into perspective. Just how best we could go about achieving a work-life balance. Yeah. I didn't understand wellness until a couple of years back. Let me take it back to probably 2018, when I just started feeling like I was sick, but I couldn't identify where I was ailing. And things were breaking down. I was getting flus every 2 weeks. I have a random stomach bug. And I remember sitting down with my doctor at the time, and he told me, you need to take a break, breathe. And because you've been running and running and running for I don't know how many years, that you've not taken time to take care of all these facets of you, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, everything is combusting. So I started applying practices from that time. Didn't get into physical fitness until way later. For me, I'm very lazy when it comes to that. But now I'm starting to enjoy it. The whole idea of gymming, forced labor. But when you see the results, then it kind of motivates you to keep going on and on and on. Mentally, I think that was the first thing for me. And me taking up things like coaching and therapy I didn't struggle with the decision, because I knew there's something that needed to be worked on there. And it's something that I've been doing continuously. And I think when you fix your mind, everything else follows. Diet, also being a very key component of wellness. Something that I had to look at And you get so caught up in the rat race that you forget you need to function at 100 for you to be part of this rat race. So wellness is something that I take very seriously, and I also realize I'm not aging backwards. It's, every year we add a feather to this cap. So the sooner I start having some of these practices, the better. And the better for me to show up in this world as 100%. Yeah. It's a very good question, because there's definitely differences to how boys and girls are brought up and what is taught to us. We are taught how to, you're the homekeeper, clean up, make sure you show up as, this prim and proper girl. And there's a lot of things that were taught to me or were instilled in me in my upbringing that, yes, I borrow from. And I think just off the top of my head, organization. Nothing needs to be, nothing can be out of order. It is, make sure this couch is well, if it's the pillows, if it's the what, it's that kind of organization. And that also trickles into the workplace, because you find, things that my male counterparts would be struggling with is something that almost comes naturally. And also, I would say thinking, I'm trying to find a way of phrasing this. There's something that my mom taught me in my teenage years, is thinking of every possible case scenario. When you're doing something, try and think of different outcomes. And I didn't see the practicality of it then, but when I got into work, I started thinking, this is something that was nurtured and cultivated in me, and it didn't make sense then, but it's making sense now, that even before I make a decision, I'm able to think of about 4 or 5 different scenarios of how it could go, and that helps me, helps me in my decision making, guides it. That has worked out for me, and I hope it's the same for other girls, because we are taught, think about it this way, if you're sending a girl to the shop in the evening, before you tell them go, there's certain things you'll tell them. Please make sure you look who's walking behind you, make sure you lock the gate behind you, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like that sort of analytical sort of thinking is something that you end up transferring into other areas of your life. Work, for example, business, for example, family, and bring up a family, for example. So, yeah. One, those opportunities will not create themselves. You have to identify them, and you also have to get out there and create them for yourself. You might ask how, but just have a third eye. It's something I had to learn, that nothing was handed to me. I somewhat had to make it happen. Speak up for yourself. No one is going to be your defender or, whoever. Yes, you have a community around you, but you have to show up for yourself. Speak up. Let your voice be heard. Grab a seat and join a table. That is the only way sometimes you have to bulldoze your way into some of these spaces. Do it with utmost grace, with your head held high, knowing that you bring value to whatever space you occupy. You bring value. Do not question your value. And because you exist in certain spaces because you need to be there and you're needed in those spaces. So instead of questioning why you're there, it is live up to those values and see that you're needed. Just because you do not have what people call qualifications does not mean you cannot seize an opportunity. You can. It's yours for the taking. You just need to know what it is that is required. And I think it all comes down to the kind of value you see in yourself, and being able to sell yourself as you are. It never is about you. And I think if you move around the world thinking that the world revolves around you and the world owes you something and that it is for you, you are already setting yourself up for failure. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.